welcome to the Fast Mode podcast series. I'm Tara Neal, and with me today is Vasanth Raju, Head of AI Products at Rakuten. Rakuten Group is a global technology leader in services that empower individuals, communities, business, and society. Founded in Tokyo in 1997 as an online marketplace, Rakuten has expanded to offer services in e-commerce, fintech, digital content, and communications to 2 billion members around the world. Vasanth joins us ahead of TM Forum's DTW Ignite 2026, taking place next week in Copenhagen. Welcome, Raju. Great to have you on today's episode.
Thanks for having me, Tara, and great to be here today with you.
Awesome. Okay, so next week is DTW Ignite, and you'll be speaking at the show. So, what themes will you be touching on, and what do you expect to be the biggest topics of conversations across the industry this year?
Yeah, I think I'll try to cover the later part of your question first, right?
Mhm.
I think fundamentally telco is at a crossroads, right? So if you're looking at ARPU year over year from 2020 to 2026, it's gone down by 12.5% global
Mhm.
ARPU of users, and there's a record amount of data usage at the moment. So I think the real big question that's facing a lot of telco operators is which business are we in, right? I think a lot of the telco operators are wondering what should be my business model moving forward, and I
Mhm.
think that's going to be a big theme. I expect, and I would cover that as well in my speech. Um, the other thing is obviously what is going to be with AI and how do we take advantage of AI, right? So that will be that's obviously understandably a lot of models and how powerful they are today. I think we expect a lot of conversations around, I think, especially around moving beyond just pilots, right? Like, I think people have tried it, POCs, pilots, and we need to have it in production. And are we seeing ROI and value? I see that's going to be a big part of the conversation too. And I'm just going to share like actual ROI that Rakuten has been driving from some of these deployments that we've done at scale inside the company.
Mhm. Wow. So, you mentioned AI, right? So, I guess, AI is a big topic across, all the telecom and even a lot of tech events that we see this year. And, why not? Because AI is expanding at such a rapid space and scale. And, we know that telcos are embracing AI. We see AI, agentic AI, a lot of things being incorporated in their operations, right? So, expanding on that, right? What does AI first product development and execution look like within a large scale digital ecosystem like Rakuten?
That's a great question, right? So, yeah, at Rakuten, we strictly believe, generally believe rather, that basically AI is not something that you bolt onto an existing product, right? Like,
Mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm,
call it an AI product. I think the main way we look at it is how can AI amplify the value of our ecosystem, right? So one of the big things that we've been doing is how do we build that scalably, right? So fundamentally, all the way from our model foundation to all our agent architectures that can scalably be deployed across all our businesses. We have 70 over businesses. So, for example, this year we've already launched 8 agents and 11 agents to come across
mm-hmm,
different businesses of Rakuten. Our AI powered customer service tool that we're deploying across 11 businesses or 10 businesses. And we are expected to basically realize a cost savings of over about $29 million from this in 2026 alone, right? So that's what we call an example of scaled deployment of AI rather than looking at AI as fundamentally just one agent here and one agent there. We want to unify the architecture of data and agents and then deploy that across all our businesses, and especially in use cases where we can realize a lot of value, whether it's cost savings or revenue addition.
mm-hmm. Wow, interesting. You rightly pointed out when you say it shouldn't be a bolt-on, right? It shouldn't be like you're sprinkling AI, like a term on everything that we do, but instead go back and see, how you can deliver ROI on the investments in AI. And like what you pointed out, real scenarios will show us whether AI is delivering the results. And it's impressive. $29 million is the kind of savings that's going to make a huge difference. I mean, think about scaling it to more operations across the entire organization, the kind of savings that you can realize. So I guess that's a great promise for AI. But we all know that it's easier said than done, because we need some fundamentals to be in place before we achieve that. And one of that is data, because AI is all about data, right? So talking about that, sometimes data can be a real constraint, and I'm sure that in the course of your work and projects, you would see how data is sometimes the bottleneck, and data infrastructure. So do you believe competitive advantage is increasingly shifting toward data readiness, and how important are capabilities such as unifying data, breaking down organizational silos, and building a strong data foundation to realizing this measurable business growth that we've talked about from AI?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's like a prerequisite of sorts for
Mm-hmm.
us to do
Mm-hmm.
this kind of scale deployments, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, LLMs and AI compute. There's so much capex going into building data centers across the world, not just in the US,
Mm-hmm.
from all the big tech players to hyperscalers to all the AI native players, right? So LLMs are getting obviously commoditized, no doubt about it. And compute is coming online, I think faster than the rate that some people think that it's not going to meet demand, but I believe that there's enough compute in the world to really get value out of it. So both of them are now available plenty around the world, right? So now what can a organization, a business like Rakuten build, for example, as a mode is truly our data, right? So I think that before we move to that, realizing that data mode, some interesting data points, right? Like, so, for example, if a customer uses, three services at Rakuten, right? Which is across both our fintech vertical, our mobile vertical, as well as our commerce vertical. They're more likely to have about 13.5x more ARPU than an average customer who uses just one of our services, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now that's 13.5x, not 13.5% more. So you can see the tremendous difference in value, right? Right. Now, how do we get that value realized? Is because we have a single identification system, and I'll touch upon this maybe during our my session at DTW next week as well. Is that single identification system allows us to tie all the user data and
Mm-hmm.
their actual transaction history together. Now we have 70 plus services, right? And how do we create these are disparate data sets, although they're united by one ID. We have to create a very unified data platform, and we have done that before as well. As preparation for this particular way of scaled agent launch based on AI, we had already done what I call the foundational work on the data. So that becomes like a strategic prerequisite for even you to get started to get the value at scale from AI, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we build a single unified data platform, and then this data platform can power our, variety of agents across all these businesses and services, right? So I think that creates a unique moat, right? Like this kind of data is not available to anybody else. This is real data, people paying for things. People are basically subscribing to things like Rakuten Mobile, and we have other services on subscription as well. On a day-to-day basis, people are traveling. So this kind of actual user transaction data that when you tie it with obviously governance and privacy, I think it can become a really powerful moat in a single unified data platform. Then AI becomes not an advantage, AI is the amplifier.
Mm-hmm.
We truly believe that AI is never the advantage because of the LLMs being commoditized in this modern world. So it just amplifies the data moat that we have.
Well, when you said 13.5 times, yeah, can you imagine? Just because you can unify three services and you have 70 services, right? So if you can scale that up to 70 services, you can just imagine the kind of value. I'm seeing these numbers for the first time, and they're really impressive, and I guess for a lot of telcos, this is something that they would be really interested to pursue to see how to make this happen. And as usual, Rakuten is always at the forefront of innovations, and I guess this proves it. So looking beyond individual use cases, you mentioned quite a few, a Raptor and all that sound really interesting. So how are leading digital organizations aligning this data and then their products and also customer experiences across the enterprise to create lasting enterprise-wide value? We touched upon that, and like if you have many services, you can basically bring all the services together. But but it still requires you to put together at an organization level. You still need teams to come together, your backend to come together. What are your thoughts on that?
I think from a business strategy perspective, right? Like I think the real thing that we are seeing is we have to close what we call the loyalty loop, right? So I mean, just taking a step back on the business strategy is like saying, and going back to my initial thoughts about what I shared about the telco business model being disrupted, right? Because of the slowdown in ARPU, right?
Yes.
So now the question is telco the real business, or is telco an entry point to your
Mm.
ecosystem business, right? A
Wow.
good example or analogy of this is the airlines business, right? So, since the 1970s, the US airlines have all pivoted to loyalty as the business, with basically buying a seat on an airplane as the entry point of the user getting into the loyalty program. So 2024, none of the airlines made, if you exclude the revenue from loyalty points and programs, none of them have made a positive operating margin.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
the airline seat is the entry point, right?
Mhm.
So now let's take that and project onto a modern, let's say, telco business or ecosystem business with telco as an entry point. Is that your SIM card or the eSIM that the user buys is basically the entry point. It's the seat on the plane. And once they're on the plane, they're part of your loyalty program, right? And once we see a mobile user basically start using other services inside our ecosystem, we can see that revenue grow, right? Like so, like I mentioned, 13.5x if they're using all three of our services.
Mhm.
Now, in Rakuten's case, it's a bit unique because we were not a telco first. We already had these
Mhm.
existing ecosystem businesses first.
Yes.
So in a way, it was very hard for us because we had to spend a lot of capex on building up the telco network. But if you ask me, um, do our users and they and their loyalty to us, is it based on the quality of our telco network? Yes, maybe, and we have one of the best. But it's also because of our loyalty loop, right? The fact that they can basically spend across our ecosystem services and get loyalty and reward points back
Mhm.
is what keeps the real business model and the flywheel going, right? So I believe that this is a very crucial point. If you look at a modern digital ecosystem and internet services players, I think about the ecosystem and closing the loyalty loop, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Now, very key to closing the loyalty loop is the Rakuten ID. We have an
Mhm.
identification system of the user across all our services and the
Mhm.
data platform and the architecture that I mentioned, right?
Mhm.
Now, if you look at all of this, actually, it's a leadership mandate, right? So you really need leaders to think about the business model, the business strategy, and say, we've been blessed with some visionary leaders, and including Mikitani-san, who leads the Rakuten Group. So they've had the foresight to think about this as a one single ecosystem and another service, basically, that we can bring the user into to grow the ecosystem, right? So from a top-down layer, that's very much, let's say, the vision, right? But if we have to translate that to actual execution strategy, then you're looking at the data platform that I mentioned, end to end. And we're looking at basically from all the way from building our own foundational models. Now, as an example of the foundation models, first version of our model that we launched was just 7 billion parameters. Now, next year we launched about a 56 billion parameter model, 8x more model. how could we do it? Because we had data that we basically could access to, and that data made our model foundational model training scale up, right? And we're going to launch bigger and bigger models as we go along, and these models can not just be more powerful models in a general sense, but they've also can be made to do a lot better and drive business value because we can connect that to our data platform, right? So from training to real-time agent experiences, we're basically aligning the entire strategy from top down. Everything needs to go like we want to close the loyalty loop, and we see AI as the amplifier to do so. For that, we need data platforms. So all the way from top down, we are aligned in terms of our business to product execution to our data and technology execution in that sense. So I think that's the mandate that probably we need to rethink, and I'll be sharing a bit more about that in detail next week.
Wow, what you've mentioned, right? The level of comprehensiveness that you have when you are rolling out something like this is not like what we, when we started, we said it's not just about bringing in an AI module, because if you want to deliver real value to this, you basically have to have the entire ecosystem. You have to have the guardrails. People talk about AI guardrails and so forth. But, you've brought in an even wider view to all this, how you align everybody, people, the vision, the leadership mandate, and it trickles down from there to, every process and every person in the organization. And, I like the loyalty loop term that you've brought in. And it's really amazing. This is the first time, in fact, I'm hearing about how the entry, like, when you compare this with the airline industry, it's that one seat on the airplane, and here in telecoms, the SIM card basically gives you entry to a whole ecosystem of services, and the importance of, like what you mentioned, the identity. So a single identity gives you like a pass to all these services, and you have to be able to manage that, to cater to this one person, single identity across the entire spectrum of services that you provide. And I think that's amazing, right? I mean, people are very excited to be a loyal customer because they collect points and they get to exercise things across different services. It's something that you and me, and I think everyone around the world, we are all predisposed to being loyal when we can exercise things through a single platform. And I think, they always say telcos have the billing relationship, right? And that gives them the basically the entry point to this.
Absolutely.
Yep. So, yep, I guess, with that, we have come to the end of the session. I know that, from what we have discussed, I think a lot of people will benefit joining the session that you'll be, speaking at next week's DTW. So all the best to the team, to the Rakuten team at the show. And I guess thanks so much for joining us today and sharing these insights with us.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Tara, for having me here and the insightful questions. Pleasure for me to share about what we're doing here. And if anybody's listening to this and they're in DTW next week, I look forward to meeting you or learning from you or sharing more thoughts with you. Thanks so much, Tara.
Awesome. And yes, like what Vasanth said, if you guys are tuning in, you can learn more. You can connect to Rakuten's LinkedIn and, maybe send a message to, get an appointment at the show. So that'll be .linkedin.com/company/Rakuten-AI. And of course, follow the Fast Mode for more updates and insights as we continue to uncover the latest in technology and telecommunications. See you guys in our next session. Bye-bye.